and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about everything I read in January, and I'm so excited because I read so many great books in January. Like nothing really to complain about. So good, so I'm really excited to talk about them. Okay, I'm editing and I just wanted to pop in and say that I put my rating in the description below, so I didn't actually talk about what I actually rated the books, but just in case you were interested, it's in the description box below. The first book I read was Call Us What We Carry by Amanda Gorman, who was the inaugural poet last year. And this book is a collection of her poetry, including the inaugural poem, but also a lot of other poems that she's written. There's also some snippets from like history, so she talks about the pandemic and race and brings those all into like the current time, but also references past issues and struggles. And I think she just captures like the human experience very well, especially living through the pandemic. It was just, I don't know, so emotional. She just did a really good job of capturing exactly like what I had felt during a lot of the pandemic and a lot of things that have happened. So I just feel like it's just so beautiful. And if I reread it, I would probably want to listen to it and read it at the same time. Because it was cool. Like some of it was a little bit visual, but I imagine it's also really cool to listen to her recite it. So yeah, it was amazing already, just like 5 stars right off the bat. So I loved it. The next book is a mystery thriller, Greenwich, not sure, but by Katherine Faulkner. And this is about this woman, Helen, who is taking these antenatal classes. She's pregnant and she meets this woman, Rachel, there. And Rachel is there by herself. She's also pregnant, but she's kind of like young and carefree and strikes up conversation with Helen, and they sort of start to become friends. And after that one class, she starts to see her around town a lot, which she is kind of normal, but she's also kind of like, that's so weird, I keep seeing her everywhere. So it's mostly about Helen, but also there's some other characters. Katie, who is a journalist covering this trial, and also who is Helen's best friend and kind of sort of playing detective in this. It's kind of an interesting book because you're not looking through the detective's eyes, but I feel like as a reader, like you're getting things before a lot of the characters are, and that was sometimes a little bit frustrating for me because it made me feel like a lot of characters were just kind of like very oblivious to things, but also it was kind of fun to figure it out for yourself. And I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to give anything away. I highly recommend it if you are into like a mystery thriller. There are some trigger warnings with this that I'll put in the description below. I thought it was really fun and interesting, and it's actually the lowest I rated this month, but that's only because I feel like it was a really good reading month. I actually did like it a lot. Okay. The next that I read is a duology. The first one is We Hunt the Flame, and this is a fantasy duology about this girl, Zafira, who is known throughout the lands as the hunter, and she's kind of living this double life where she's disguising herself as a man and provides for her community because nobody else can actually go into this cursed forest called the R's. And everyone who comes back is like either dies or is like loses their mind, but she can somehow like keep coming back. So she's able to provide for her community and hunt in this forest. And one day she gets a letter from the Silver Witch asking her to go to this place called the Shar and help return magic to the lands. So magic has mysteriously disappeared, I think almost 100 years ago, and there's some like theories and tales about why and how, but they don't really exactly know. and Zafira decides to go and try to bring back magic. She's supposed to basically retrieve this object that will help bring back magic to the land. Okay, sorry. I had to pause, so sorry if the angle is different or anything like that. Okay, we were talking about the sands of Arawaya duology. Okay, so Nasser is this like assassin who is actually the son of the Sultan, and he does not have a great rep. Everyone's really scared of him because he goes out and kills people, and he is sent by the Sultan to go to the Shah, find the hunter, and follow the hunter to this magical object or whatever it is, and steal the object and kill the hunter. So it's all about this adventure that takes place on the Shah. And then the second one is We Free the Stars, and I love them both. I thought they were both really great. The first one took me a long time, like over 100 pages to get into it. So yeah, kind of slow in the beginning, but then the adventure, like once the like action starts, it was very fun. Super fun fantasy. There's a romance. I really like the romance, both characters. And the second book continues their story, and I really enjoyed it also. I won't say too much because I don't want to spoil anything from the first book. But the only like kind of qualm I had with the second one is I feel like there were some decisions made by characters that I didn't fully understand or just seemed a little out of character. But overall, I really loved it. I thought it was really great, and I would recommend it, especially if you like fantasy, fun adventure stories. So, yeah. Alrighty, so we have our next book, which is Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi, and this book is fantastic, just beautiful, also tragic, kind of heartbreaking at times, but really beautiful, and I would highly recommend. It starts off with two sisters in Ghana in the 1700s, one who is married to an Englishman and the other who is sold into slavery, and it follows their descendants throughout history and the impacts that historical events and just different periods in history have on these characters. So focusing on the family that is sold into slavery and through their history in the United States, and the other sister's family in Ghana with colonialism and all the historical events that occur. The one other thing that I wanted to say about Homegoing, and the only thing that I struggled with a little bit, was just that I was partially listening to it on audiobook, and it's very like generational, like changes points of view a lot, and that is hard for me to listen to. So my fault, because I know that I'm not great at listening to books like that. But if you have similar struggles with like following different storylines on audiobook, then I would definitely like read this in print or as an ebook. So yeah, again, I highly recommend it. It was really beautifully written. The relationships between families and characters are just so beautiful. But again, very sad and traumatic at times. So Homegoing, another great book. Again, such a great month for reading. So the next one is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. This book was my favorite of the entire month by far. I loved it. Call Us What We Carry was a close second, so I really love that too. But this one just like blew my mind. It was right up my alley. Also just so like right time for me. I've been thinking about a lot of the things in this book like already, so I just loved it. I will say I don't think it's for everyone. Starts off in the Arctic Circle at this dig site where these researchers are digging up ancient artifacts, and this Arctic plague is released to the world. So that's how it starts. And then the entire book is kind of what follows the release of this plague. And Oh my gosh, I just like, it was so incredible. It has been likened to Cloud Atlas and Station 11, and I think that's really accurate. So if you like those, you'll definitely like this. If you didn't, you might not though. So I think the thing that I would give a warning to is that it's about, like, there's about a pandemic, there's some climate change stuff, it's like very real issues, and a lot of like death and the dark sides of those things in this book. So that's kind of a warning that there are some heavy things that are also very relatable and like kind of happening right now. But I think one of the reasons I loved it, it's like so incredibly like vast and kind of existential, but also the author just like captures like relationships and individual stories also so incredibly well. And so you like see, it's just kind of like this beautiful book about humanity, both like the small relationships, like what makes us human, but all like the vastness and like what makes us so small. So I really loved it. I think it like, it's definitely going to be one of my top books from the year. It's incredible. So yeah, that's how we go in the dark. Okay. So we have 2 more. I read a total of 8 books in January. Okay, so the next book is a nonfiction called Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller. So this is a nonfiction book about an ichthyologist. So he studied fish, David Starr Jordan, and he did a lot of like classifying and discovering of fish species, and was all about order and trying to understand how things exist in the world and the dark places that his life and philosophies led. I don't want to say too much because I wasn't very familiar with the story, and it was surprising to me, but also very interesting and worth reading. Like definitely a part of history that doesn't get talked about all that much. So I highly recommend it. It was interesting to read about a biologist, but also another kind of warning in that his research definitely eventually, and his just kind of worldview eventually led to some really not great racist places. So, but the thing that I also really enjoyed was that about this book is that the author wove her own story and like how she became interested in this topic into it, and I just think it was really interesting. There's a lot of like kind of relatable things about being human, existing in the world, trying to figure out how we should exist. I feel like you can see like a theme like the books that I liked. It's a whole how we go in the dark, just about like what it means to be human, and this book talked a lot about that, and both in like a positive way and like the darker sides of things. So definitely a great book. The last book is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Finally read this one and loved it. I read Daisy Jones and the Six in 2019. Loved that too. And I've heard nothing but good things about the author, so had a feeling I would like it. It is about this family living in Malibu and the dynamics, relationships between different members of the family and the events that lead up to and occur at this party that they're throwing. So honestly, it's not something that like the premise wouldn't necessarily intrigue me, but Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing is just really good, and I listened to this one on audiobook and I thought the audiobook was really good as well. So yeah, Malibu Rising, a lot of great themes about family, about relationships, about taking care of yourself, and yeah. So those were all the books that I read in January. Again, just like such a good month for reading. I love them all. I hope you enjoyed this video, maybe got some reading inspiration, and I would love to hear what you read this month and recommend. So yeah, thanks for stopping by.